afternoon and welcome everyone, and hello wherever you may be, whatever part of the world you may be tuning in from. For those who I have not had an opportunity to meet, I am Joy Dingle. I am the Senior Director of Legal Diversity Initiatives here at Street Law Inc. Thank you for joining us for today's discussion and webinar entitled Lighting the Pathway. For those of you who are just logging on and have not had an opportunity to introduce yourselves in the chat, please go ahead and continue to add your names, your affiliations, and your locations if you feel comfortable. We would love to know where you're joining us from. And welcome. So far, we're seeing folks from California, Kentucky, Chicago, Illinois, and looks like even more are joining us. So please go ahead and drop your information into the chat. You may continue to introduce yourselves as we have these opening remarks for you. And again, thanks for joining us. So for those of you who are not familiar, Street Law's mission is that we envision a world where everyone has the knowledge and power to shape a more just and equitable society. And our vision is that we advance civic and law-related education to empower all people to positively transform their world. Our co-host today is the Law School Admission Council, and their admission is to advance law and justice by encouraging diverse, talented individuals to study law and by supporting their enrollment and learning journeys from pre-law through practice. They envision leveling the playing field and giving people from all backgrounds and walks of life the chance to add their diverse voices to the world of law. There are many people that we must acknowledge for bringing us to this point today. The folks you see listed here are members of our community advisory group. They come from various backgrounds, from students enrolled at the school, to parent, to faculty, staff, members of the legal community within Chicago, and many others. Without their participation and support, we would not have had a successful pilot project, and so we're thankful to all of you. Just a few tips for enjoying today's webinar. If you enjoy taking notes, you're certainly welcome to, but for anyone who did pre-register for this particular event, we will send a copy of the PowerPoint slide that we are showing today so that everyone can go back and reference it later. During some portions, the audience will be muted, so we will have an opportunity to focus and be able to hear our guest speakers. They will be highlighted on your screen. The audience does have the option of clicking the upper right icon on your screen and using either the speaker view or the side-by-side view. This will help you focus on the slides that are current and see who is speaking directly. If you prefer to leave it in large screen mode, you're also welcome to do that. Following our opening discussion, the audience will have an opportunity to participate in a small group exercise. So we invite everyone warmly to be a part of that. At that point, you will be unmuted, and we will give you further instructions when we reach that portion. To give you an overview of today's webinar, we are going to give you background on the pilot project. You are going to hear directly from some of our stakeholders and understand some of the preliminary findings. Collaboratively, we are going to discuss how a project like this has potentially a larger impact on law-themed schools. And we want to hear your feedback as the audience as part of the next steps for this pilot project. So without further ado, what I would like is for today's speakers to introduce themselves and briefly respond to this question. And that is, from your perspective, why is early outreach to students and teachers at law-themed schools significant? I'm going to start with Angela, and then we will move on to Sam and then to Bob. So Angela, whenever you are ready, please take it away.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar. It's my pleasure to be here with you. So my name is Angela Winfield, and I am the Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer at the Law School Admission Council, LSAC. And there are so many reasons why early outreach is critical, but let me give you just a little bit more context. Joy mentioned that LSAC's mission is to support and encourage diverse talent from pre-law through practice. And part of the reason why we believe that is an important mission and the right mission for us is because in order to have more justice and access in the legal system, we need to have people who reflect the true population of the US involved in those systems, representing people, contributing to and understanding how the laws impact individuals and systems. So it is absolutely critical. The other thing that we know, because we're looking at the pipeline all the way through up and through the profession, is that it starts very early. When we have asked our law students, current law students and folks who are in practice, we've asked them, when did you start thinking about attending law school or going into the legal profession? And it is surprising that for many, especially marginalized students, more than half of them thought about it, not just in college, but before college. They thought about it in high school. That seed was planted early. So we have data supporting that, and we want to make sure that folks have the information that they need and the exposure, and I will emphasize positive exposure to the law and legal profession so that they can make informed decisions about their careers, about their lives, regardless of whether they go into practice at all. This information is so helpful and so critical to them. So we're following the data, and we know that this can really help and impact and shape students on their career trajectories. The other reason why this is so important is a personal reason. So I myself am an attorney. I went through, the undergraduate, the pre-law cycle, went to law school at Cornell Law School, graduated and practiced law before I transitioned and started doing DEI work. But the thing that was really pivotal for me is that as a high school student at a public high school in New York State, I had the opportunity to participate in a law academy at my high school. And that personally, helped to shape my understanding of what the profession was, all of the opportunity and possibilities, that it wasn't just what I saw on TV, because I did not have anyone in my family or close friends that were attorneys, but I learned so much more from being able to participate in that law academy. So, and having the opportunity to support this, LSAC has made early outreach before high school graduation one of our 4 strategic priority areas. So this is huge for us. We want to expand the pipeline and expand interest in law. So that's what I would say. It's a very long answer, but it's a thorough one because this is such an important issue. And thank you for inviting me to the conversation.
Angela, thanks so much for joining us and for that outstanding overview. We really appreciate that. Sam, welcome. I would like to pose the same question to you after you introduce yourself.
No, thank you so much, Joy. I am really appreciative of the fact that we're able to be here today, but even more so the fact that we were allowed to be part of this pilot program. My name is Sam Finkelstein. I am the CEO and co-founder of Legal Prep Charter Academy. We are a legal-themed charter high school in Chicago's West Garfield Park neighborhood. We opened our doors in the fall of 2012, so we're now in year 11. And have a student population of about 250 to 300, depending on the year, and are really excited about this work. And like Angela said, the mission of making sure that students learn about the legal profession early and often, certainly before they step foot in on a college campus. I think it is really important to have that early exposure and that early outreach, because we want our students to understand that the law, it is for them and there is a place for them in the legal profession. I think that a lot of the students come in and are talking about being in law enforcement or other sort of realms within the legal profession, but they don't really necessarily know lawyers, and they don't necessarily see that as a place that they can be. And I think when you start early and expose students to lawyers, and especially lawyers that look like them, there's a ton of value in that as they start to set their own goals. They see somebody else where they want to be, and they say, I can do that. I can go there and achieve that same thing. And I think that's really, really valuable. I think also when we poll our students when they come into high school in 9th grade, what you realize is that they don't really have a real understanding of what lawyers do, or even all of the options that are out there as an attorney. And so I think the exposure piece also does that. It talks to students about all of the different ways that the law impacts their lives. And so just because maybe they don't feel comfortable being in front of a jury, there's so much more to the legal profession than that. And so we like to do a lot of work in giving our students a broad perspective on what the legal profession is all about and all the options that they'll have should they decide to pursue that. And I think also the final piece too, if you want to be realistic about it, we don't want all of our students to be lawyers. That would not necessarily be good for the profession. And I think early outreach and early sort of access tells some students that it's not really for them. And maybe they want to do something else. And they, get an opportunity to understand that, yes, professional world, professional life, this is what it looks like, but they can understand that maybe the legal profession isn't for them. And as we all know, it's become a more and more expensive proposition to go down that path. And so you want students to make a really informed decision about that. And so students deciding that the law isn't for them, but maybe business is, or medicine, that can be a really valuable thing to discover in high school.
Sam, thanks so much for those important perspectives and for joining this study. And last but not least, Bob, please go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Barz. I am the head of the English and Law department at Legal Prep, the school that Sam just introduced. I also teach all of the juniors and seniors at the school in their law courses. The upperclassmen take 4 college level courses at our school. And the underclassmen each take a full year of law before they get to me. Also, I'm the third lawyer being introduced here. All of us have moved into different areas than practicing law directly, but I practiced for about 12 years before I turned to teaching, and now this is my 6th year. But picking up where Sam left off and kind of pivoting a little bit, not all the kids are going to go to law school. I think it's great for the reasons that 2 previous speakers gave, that they are introduced early, but I also think it's really invaluable to the students to learn the legal mindset and legal analysis of not just cases and not just the street law text, but also applying it to their real world situations, both in high school and afterwards. There's definitely something to being able to understand what a problem is, what the best facts and what non-made up facts, well-supported facts are going to have a role in resolving a dispute, and then advocating for one side or the other in a dispute are all things that we introduce early at our school. And I think they're things that whether the kids go on to do a legal profession job or law school, they take with them no matter what. So I think from the teaching perspective, that's the most significant thing to me.
Bob, thanks for raising that point about the significance of law-related education and why it's so important for as many young people as possible to have exposure to, as you said, the mindset and the ability to analyze in that way. So we asked our participating audience when they registered, what was most important for all of you in terms of the various types of interventions that were possible, or things that you were looking to have as experiences for yourselves and for your students. And we put it into this nice chart, and what it emphasizes is that the main issues that the audience was concerned about was teaching with primary sources, lining up internships and job shadowing opportunities, having guest speakers in the classroom to talk about the law and legal careers, and to enhance the various activities connected to online learning. We appreciate that feedback for a number of reasons, and we will delve more into what the interventions are that were part of this particular pilot. But for everyone's information, street law does have resources to support these top issues that were identified. With the exception of internships and job shadowing, we have a little bit less on that. But all of those other areas and others that were mentioned when you all registered are actually available to you through the street law website. So if you visit streetlaw.org and click on the upper right-hand corner highlighted in blue, where we list teaching resources, and then click underneath that, there is a free resource library, which is available not only to all who are viewing today, but to everyone. These things are free and publicly available. And we hope that when you do have an opportunity, if you have not already, that you will take a look at the various resources that are available to support you and eventually the students that you impact. So this particular project focused on the K-12 pipeline, which we have already emphasized. And the grant cycle itself started 2 months prior to October, and then the actual work started in October of 2021. And we are now wrapping up the final work in this month. It involved the formal collaboration between the 3 organizations to which you've already been introduced. And as you can see, we are in 3 different locations, so we took advantage of technology to make a lot of the work happen. Also, for sake of this discussion, we wanted everyone to know how we're using the term law-themed school. And it focuses on a few different examples of what that can look like. Many of you are at high schools with a specific focus on law-related education, just as legal prep is. That can also mean an academy within a law school, the kind that Angela mentioned having an impact on her, that has a specific focus on law-related education. And in some cases, it will be a selected pathway or initiative within a high school with a focus on law-related education. And as was mentioned, a variety of areas of focus are made available through law-themed schools. They can have all sorts of themes, all sorts of relevant information related to justice, to law enforcement, public safety, homeland security, etc. So it is a broad area. It happens that many of these schools serve predominantly minoritized students or those who identify as people of color. And that is why they are critical to the full functioning and inclusion of the pipeline in K-12 education. So the theory of change for this pilot was that if educators at law-themed schools improved minoritized students' access to rigorous, high-quality, and equitable education environments that better prepare minoritized students for higher education. And also if educators at law-themed schools better incorporate career-focused materials and activities into the courses available for students. And if law-based street law programs had an opportunity to partner with law-themed schools to cultivate and support the aspirations of these students, then ultimately minoritized students at law-themed schools would have an opportunity to have the network, confidence, skills, resilience, and knowledge to pursue law-related careers by successfully attending college and law school. And as we discussed, also discovering whether those particular pathways were the best options for them. I do want to make a special note that the University of Chicago was critical to the success of this pilot. In this situation, their law students returned to campus a little bit later than the typical law students, as they function on a quarter schedule and not a semester schedule. And so law students from the University of Chicago were trained by street law staff to engage with students. And they did not have an opportunity to start their planning until later in the fall semester. There was a specific requirement for law students to have special training from the university before they participated in any public outreach programs. And as we start to come out of the pandemic, the demand for those trainings, as more and more was happening in person, was actually exceeded the availability. And so the participating students that we did have, although they were trained to use street law methodologies, did not have an opportunity to complete the training before the end of the fall 2022 semester. So that did have an impact on the pilot in the sense that we were not able to capture data for those law students and how they impacted the high school students at legal prep. We do understand, though, just how significant their impact, their potential impact is, and we hope that in future opportunities, in future studies, should that opportunity become available, that there be an emphasis on the role that law students and law schools can play. And some of you in the audience today are joining us from law schools, or you are law students, and we eagerly anticipate your participation in this discussion because we understand how important this is. What went especially well for us was that LSAC required that we have a community advisory group to guide the pilot. And the role that they played was that we met approximately every 2 weeks for 45 minutes, and that members completed assignments during the tasks and by stated deadlines. The community advisory group drew from a broad cross-section of folks who were pivotal to the success of legal prep, legal professionals from the community, parent, students, and a variety of faculty and staff. And our guidelines were that we wanted to make sure that we were not only creating a safe and respectful space for everyone to share their opinions, but we wanted a fully inclusive environment where members were not censored or penalized in any way for anything that they wanted to add. But it was very important to us that we honored the lived experiences of everyone who was involved in the group, regardless of their background, their identities, or differences of opinion. This really helped us have deeper and robust discussions around the various challenges and also the various opportunities and positive aspects that that students can ultimately benefit from, the kinds of things that they can contribute to a positive school environment, and also ways in which positive outcomes could happen for them. The process was to complete a comprehensive needs assessment, and with the help of our assessment consultant, we were able to do that. She was able to assess the high school students and the teachers, and also summarize the needs to inform the project's direction. And eventually we were able to align the interventions with the objectives of the study. So the part you've probably been waiting for is, well, what happened with all this? Well, we got really terrific feedback from the teachers and staff at the school. And these are some of the things that they emphasized with us. First, that law-related courses were critical to the preparation of students. There are no surprises there. They also recommended that creating longer-term student interactions and mentorship opportunities would be very important to the success of students, not only while they were in high school, but hopefully in their early college years, and that there would be an opportunity to track them doing that. Mentorship and involvement in legal classes with support from the legal community was very important to the teachers and staff, and so is raising awareness of the various law-related careers. So all those were very much in line with the theories of change, and we were very happy to hear that that was exactly what teachers and staff wanted for students. They also emphasized that for students to be successful, more rigorous coursework was required, and that it was going to be especially critical for students to improve their reading, research, and presentation skills. Teachers also reported that an increase in their pedagogical skills in specific areas would allow them to support students in pursuing law-related careers more effectively. And last but not least, teachers and staff are very candid that when there were limitations of their own legal knowledge, especially for those who do not hold law degrees or have not practiced law, that could be a barrier to providing a high quality learning environment for students. And so they requested law-related professional development to aid them. On the student side, what we heard from students, and Sam alluded to this in his opening remarks, is that once enrolled at legal prep, about a quarter of students come there knowing that they would like to pursue a law-related major or career after graduation. Equally enlightening to us is that about half of the students were still deciding what it is they wanted to do. We saw that as a very positive aspect because it meant that those students were open-minded to the types of instruction and experiences that they could have at school to help them in making that decision. They weren't so far along in the process that they had made up their minds, that they were open-minded to what might happen to them. And so we took that as an encouraging sign and felt that any interventions that they receive early may have a positive impact on their learning outcomes. Students also told us, and these are students from all grades, when they were asked about whether they felt ready to pursue a law-related career after graduation, 65%, the overwhelming number, did say that they were kind of prepared in getting there. And we are curious to hear from those of you who are part of this learning community, whether the students whom you teach and support feel very much the same way. About a fifth of the students reported that they were not yet at that point, but felt confident that they would get there. And about 16% said that they were very well prepared. And so we would love to hear in deeper discussions how this squares with the types of experiences that your students are having. 42% of the students at Legal Prep did report that they needed more law-related courses to actually help them understand the basic skills needed for taking a law course. And while this didn't surprise us completely, we think that there may be some links to the fact that the study of law and law-related material is somewhat different than what most students have experienced prior to high school. And so it does make sense that many of them would need some opportunities to build some of those skills so that they can access that information better. We took a closer look at what sorts of interventions we could provide to teachers and staff. While not every intervention is listed here, there are 4 in particular that seem to have a greater impact on participating teachers and staff. One was for them to understand better how to use the street law textbook, the teacher's manual, and the related resources. The next was strengthening their ability to teach about law-related topics. That was followed by the integration of legal professionals in the classroom. And last but not least, the introduction of the deliberation model. For those of you who are not familiar with street law's deliberation model, it is a methodology which is available for use in all classrooms, whether the focus is law-related or not. And the goal is to help teachers support students in cooperatively discussing contested public issues by carefully considering multiple perspectives. Deliberation does vary from debate in the sense that it is not about finding a winner or a loser based upon the facts. It is based more upon having audience members with varying perspectives reach a consensus. And so that's what deliberation looks like for us here at Street Law, and that's the material that we share, and it is available on our website for anyone who is interested. When we received the feedback on the interventions from faculty and staff, it was actually the deliberations that seemed to resonate most closely with what they were trying to accomplish. And for the reasons identified here, they like the flexibility, they like the potential to have cross-content learning, to have conversations across multiple topics, and that there was an opportunity for students to develop the critical thinking skills. That was followed by the use of the street law textbook. Many felt that it was a useful tool, and as they understood how to use it better, they felt that that was something that could change learning outcomes for students. And last but not least, there was also strong interest in integrating legal professionals into classrooms, engaging them in discussions, helping increase student engagement, and providing the valuable exposure to careers and practice of law. So I've given everyone a lot to think about in terms of what the various interventions were and what some of the outcomes were. The last important part is that there were 2 indicators that we used to figure out whether students felt impacted by these particular interventions. And one was the completion of their criminal law and mock trial course, which happens early in their high school experience. And the next was the completion of their street law course, which also happens, these courses happen within the underclass years, as was mentioned earlier on. And so I'm going to turn this part of the discussion over to both of our professionals at Legal Prep. I would love to hear your feedback, both Sam and Bob, about what we've just discussed here, about the impact of students in those particular classes, and also from your point of view, what was happening with faculty and staff.
Yeah, I'm happy to take the first crack at it and then hand it off to Bob. But we really enjoyed the experience participating in the pilot, and I think part of what was so helpful for our staff, I'll go there first, was the great professional development that was able to be brought in. So we're able to have Lee Arbitman. I don't know, many of you might actually know Lee. He's been at street law, or he was at street law for years and years, but he came out to our school and provided a day-long professional development, working first with our law teachers and then shifting over and working with our entire staff, and really focusing in on some strategies to use when we're bringing legal professionals into the school. We have a lot of great attorneys that we work with, but it's awesome to hear from somebody with as much experience as Lee, and get his tips for that he has learned over the years. And so that was super valuable and allows us moving forward, not just to bring in legal professionals into Bob's class. And Bob obviously is able to do a wonderful job with that as a former lawyer. I guess you're still a lawyer, as a lawyer, but he's able to do that. But now we have history teachers that can do that, English teachers that can do that. And so I think that was a really valuable tool that we put in our teachers' toolboxes that they can use moving forward, which was great. I think the students have really benefited. We've relied heavily this year, way more so than we have historically, on the street law curriculum and the text in our freshman and sophomore level law classes. And that is definitely yielding benefits. Students are super engaged in the curriculum and the topics that they're discussing, and learning a lot of skills that they can use and bring with them into other content areas that they can bring with them when they see Bob in junior and senior year for those upper level classes. So I think for me, those were 2 of the highlights from the program that, from my perspective. Bob, I'll let you kind of take it from there.
Yeah, so I'll pick up where Sam left off. We've found here at Legal Prep that, just to be honest, lawyers don't always make the best high school law teachers. We've cycled through several lawyers with our underclassmen. And currently we have a non-lawyer, someone with more of an English background teaching the law course. It's our 3rd teacher in that space this year, because we've turned over several times. But the thing that has kept that class consistent was the street law text, which I think has been very engaging for the students and kind of has guided them, even though they've changed teachers multiple times, through the various beginning and basic areas of law, and understanding those 42% of students who needed more education on how to take a law course and how to productively work through legal materials. I think they're getting that this year more so than they have in the past from the street law text. So I can't say enough about that. It's kind of been a huge benefit for us that happened to be this year when we've had some turnover for those classes. And then another thing that was mentioned, and Sam didn't say a ton about it, but I will because I use it in my class, the deliberations that street law uses and the other resources that were discussed that are on the street law website. Those aren't just for the street law text curriculum. They can be for a variety of classes: history classes, English classes, social studies classes, and of course law classes. I'm using the deliberations this week to walk the students through a topic that's not specifically addressed on street law, but the methodology, once you adapt it and you practice it, can be applied to basically any public issue. And we're doing whether or not the police should be defunded in our issues in criminal justice class this week. And we're using that type of model where the students don't necessarily debate the issue right away. They contemplate the arguments from both sides. I think the way that was delivered to us in professional development and the way Lee came out, thank you again, Lee, I saw you came in. I want to thank you again to help walk our school through the best practices for that intervention. It was just terrific. I could go on about the other resources I use from street law, but I think that would be for another webinar for the purposes of this and the pilot project that we did. I think those were two of the biggest highlights. And I also, the staff, the training of the staff, definitely, I've had people come back to me and ask, when are they going to get lawyers to come into history or into the science class or even into the math class to talk to students about cross-curricular experiences that they've had coming up through school and then on into law school and the practice of law. So it's been a benefit for the whole school.
Thank you both very much. And Bob, I especially appreciate your insights as an educator in the classroom, really telling us, an unedited view of what it felt like to use these materials, and your emphasis on contemplation, that seems to be something that is not always involved in a law-related education curriculum, but there seems to be a special need for that, especially given the current political state of the United States and how there are so many contested issues. And consistently, we hear from educators and from students that they are looking for civil and productive ways to discuss publicly contested issues. And so we're especially happy that the deliberation model and some of the other resources worked effectively for you.
Yeah, can I add really quick here?
Please.
Just because I saw a comment in the chat. I hope I didn't come off the wrong way. But when I mentioned that the lawyers don't always make the best teachers, for us, that someone did mention there in the chat that there is extra added benefit to lawyers. Absolutely, for sure, 100%. We want. I think lawyers are awesome to have as teachers. We've just found that some of the classroom management skills and educational skills that some lawyers might not have are a barrier for them in our classroom sometimes. But even teachers who are able to constructively manage, especially our underclassmen, and be able to lean on something like the street law text can really benefit from that.
Thanks for taking a moment to address that. And so now we think it's really important that we hear from the audience, and we are about to enter into our small group discussions. The structure for this is that each audience member will be randomly assigned to a breakout room. The small group will have a shared document on which to respond. It is entirely up to the group how they would like to work on that shared document, whether everyone will have an opportunity to write on it or whether one or two designated leaders will transcribe what the group is talking about. However you decide to approach this, all voices are valuable to this conversation, regardless of your background, regardless of which kind of institution you're coming from. You are a really valuable part of this conversation. And so we are going to set aside ample time for you all to be able to respond to these prompts. The first is, now that you understand the preliminary outcomes of this pilot, how do you see your school or organization benefiting from this type of collaboration? And as a follow-up, what else might you need to improve learning outcomes? We will repost these questions for you, and you will see them on the shared document when you enter your smaller groups. We just wanted to give you a preview there, but we're going to pause for a moment and give ample opportunity for the random assignments to happen and for everyone to accept, then you'll have an opportunity to unmute and have a fuller discussion on these topics. Thank you, everyone. Now that we are returning to the larger group, we are going to change direction in a moment and just get some additional feedback. We also welcome you to use the function on your screen, the Q&A function, to add questions for the larger group now that you've had an opportunity to have your smaller group discussions. And we will make every effort to get to as many questions as possible. So while you are posing your general questions for the audience, any one of our guest panelists or all three, if appropriate, please go ahead. I want to highlight here what all of us learned through this joint collaboration. First, we realized that a cross-section of community members really opened our minds to the possibilities that we were really pleased not to have one perspective, but to have multiple perspectives presented here, because so many of us have had different educational and life experiences and professional experiences, that having that dialogue across the various community members related to the school, LSAC, and street law really made a huge difference for us. Our regular communication of expectations definitely helped the project move forward smoothly, despite some of the snags that were mentioned in our discussion. Had we not had that, I don't think that we would have been able to move forward positively and overcome some of those challenges, which are just a natural part of human collaboration. Also, we were able to create a safe space for teachers, especially, and for those to discuss their specific needs. It can be very difficult to be in a professional space and admit that we don't know certain things or need support in certain areas. So we were especially grateful to our educators and staff members who were willing to share honestly with us, and we wanted them to feel that they would be welcome and that they were comfortable and would not be penalized in any way for sharing that. We did come from a strengths-based perspective. That is always helpful for programming. Instead of focusing on what was lacking, we talked about the various strengths of our teachers, our students, participating staff, and community members. It was challenging coordinating schedules across different time zones and academic calendars. And if we had an opportunity to do it again, I think we would come in a little bit better and informed and be able to do that a little bit more successfully. And collecting data in a timely manner is challenging. You heard about some of the staffing challenges. Obviously, schools have different sort of academic breaks and ongoing scheduled activities that don't always make it easy to get the feedback and the data from the various participants within the learning environment. But we did make it happen. And for anyone who wants to participate in this collaboration, we suggest just giving yourself ample time to make sure that you can get that data back. I do want to pose one additional question to our guest speakers, as some of you have an opportunity to add your additional questions and answers for the large group. And that question is to any three of our panelists who are interested, is how can we integrate more student voice into these types of collaborations? Because that was one part that we especially enjoyed from the street law perspective. And we did have an opportunity to survey students, and our assessment consultant is still putting the final touches on sifting through some of that data. But I would love to hear from any one of you about how student voice can inform more of the work that all of us do collaboratively to impact positive learning outcomes.
I'm happy to get us started on that one, because this has been a real focus for us at LSAC. We're trying to be student-centered, student-focused, really ensuring that we have their voices incorporated. And what we've done is we actually have a larger student advisory group that we consult on a regular basis. But in addition to that, when we fund and sponsor pipeline programs in other contexts, we have used an exercise and made it as a part of the curriculum of some reflection pieces. And this is how we've gotten a great amount of qualitative data about the student experience and how going through the pre-law program has supported them. So that is something that I would love to see. I mean, the surveys are very, very helpful in having that kind of quantitative data, but to the extent that, you know, we could build into the curriculum activities where students can reflect and share some of their experiences as they're happening. We have found that to be very powerful for us in learning what students need.
Angela, thanks so much.
I'll chime in too here because it just occurred to me that I think it would be terrific to use current law students as a bridge to gather information from our high school students, people who are it's more relevant to and more relevant in the sense that their education is still ongoing, and they just got there, and having discussions with what they needed in order to get to where they were. Particularly law students who come from similar backgrounds as our students, what our students need to do in order to get there, and then allowing our students to reflect on what they are and are not getting out of the high school in order to fill those objectives that are being communicated from people who were in their shoes just 5 or 6 years earlier.
Yeah, Bob, thank you for that.
Yeah, I echo what Angela and Bob just said in terms of the importance of student voice. And I think for us, you know, increasing student voice ensures that we're having discussions and doing activities that are going to be have high engagement, and that's what we need for our students. It needs to be of interest so that they will fully engage in the material, and really kind of letting them guide that where you can is super important. So I think the street law curriculum is super engaging as it is, but I think giving students even more agency over the topics is really helpful when it comes to building that engagement and building that love of learning around the law and the legal profession. Joy, I don't know, there was this question in the chat. I don't know if you want me to do that or if you're going to kind of curate them. I don't want to jump the gun.
And there is a question, and actually that is a great segue. And so I'd be happy to have you take on that question.
Absolutely.
Right, please.
Yeah, so in the chat, there's a question about what the 4-year program of study looks like at Legal Prep, and how they can connect with street law for PD. So I'll answer the first component, but maybe shift it over to you to talk a little bit about the street law PD part. So our 4 years of study, we are this year have relied really heavily on street law for our classes at our freshman and sophomore level. So there's law at every grade level. This year we're doing survey courses using the street law curriculum for both the 9th and 10th grade level. And then when they get to the upper class grades, 11th and 12th grade, they actually cycle through 4 different semester-long classes. And we do that because we have a partnership with one of the Chicago City colleges to offer dual credit, so both college and high school credit at the same time for those 4 classes. So the 4 that we have are constitutional law, criminal procedures, criminology, and issues in criminal justice. And we selected those in part because those were in the course catalog with the school we're working with, which allows for that dual credit. So our majority of our students will leave high school with 12 college credits. We're actually trying to work to increase that number of college credits so they can be close to having an associate's degree done by the time they leave, but there's still some work to be done on that. But that's the 4 years of legal education that they have. And I think, you know, even our students that don't necessarily want to be lawyers are really engaged in those courses because the topics are interesting. And at the upper levels, we have a really great teacher. So Bob does a great job with those courses, engaging the kids. So, you know, I think sometimes like we found a unicorn, right? The former practicing lawyer who also was awesome in the classroom with students. And I think you find that, that's great. And it sounds like some of those people are on this call. If you don't have that, you can get a great teacher, and then the street law material can really bridge the gap. And that's great as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. And as a follow-up, there was a question about how can a school be involved for street law to provide that specific professional development. There are some individual teacher professional developments that are made available to school districts. And so if that's something that you're interested in and there is support from your school district, you're certainly welcome to follow up, and we can engage in a deeper conversation. Part of our discussion today is in getting all this feedback from the various audience members is to figure out what it is that you might need and how we might be able to take some of this to scale. So for the sake of transparency, we have not figured out entirely how we can get this professional development to everyone in the law themed school community, but we are very interested in figuring out how to get this to scale. So thank you for your inquiry, and just, you know, as a short answer, there are some individual professional developments that can be made available, and you can certainly follow up with us in that way, and then we're going to think more deeply about how we can get this information to more people.
Or you just convince Lee to come out and visit you, because he's amazing. So if you can get Lee to come out, fly out to your school, you'll be in great shape.
Thanks for that, Sam. And Lee, it is great to have you be a part of this conversation, and thank you for your excellent work on this project. I think there are some additional Q&A, so I'm going to ask our communications team if they wouldn't mind highlighting some of the additional questions, and the audience is welcome to add more.
There were no additional questions, but Jennifer Laskin said, ask students from the beginning planning and engage them with their input. So that was her response, but not necessarily a question. And I think that was the last one for that Q&A.
Okay, and thanks for that, Jen, and we appreciate that. We know that you are an educator and attorney, and you are that unicorn that we've mentioned, but we know that there are lots of other great folks out there who have varying professional and educational experiences, and really well said about student input. We do have time for a few more questions, so if anyone would like to add any, you are certainly welcome to do so right now.
Okay, we do have another question from Krista Ross, and she asks, what are the avenues of program promotion on legal college campuses and even high school campuses? Thank you for that question, Krista.
All right. So, Krista, if I'm hearing this correctly, it's like how to promote programming for law themed schools and get the word out more on college campuses or on high school campuses. I hope that I'm interpreting that correctly. One part is what some of you have mentioned in some of the in the smaller group discussions, that there does need to be definitely support from administration, and that as you deepen your connections with the broader legal community, whether it's through law schools or other legal organizations, is collaborating with them and having discussions about where they can be supportive, and figuring out how to use some of the existing resources to get the word out. I hope that's helpful in how there might be a way to raise more awareness of these types of schools, initiatives, pathways, and how more law students can become involved.
Okay.
Can I just add to that?
Sure.
in response, because I think there may be a role here for LSAC without making any promises, but in the spirit of generating ideas and possible collaborations. This is something that LSAC has been looking at. You know, many folks know LSAC as simply the maker and administrator of the law school admissions test, or the folks who process applications and pass them along to schools. But we're actually doing much more in the pre-law through legal education space. And we've developed a platform called Law Hub, where students can come and learn more and connect. And we also, through that, are developing out our pre-law advisor space. We have connections with many of the pre-law advisors across the country. And this may be an opportunity where we can build on this pilot. Joy, I think it might be in a really interesting and potentially powerful way if we extend back so that some of the folks involved with street law and the high school programs can easily connect with pre-law advisors on campuses. That may be something worth exploring.
Angela, that's an excellent idea, and we would love to explore that as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Krista. And her follow-up was, how has the program promotion been digitized or presented more on online spaces? So I just want to confirm, Krista, you mean this particular pilot program or just all the work connected to it?
Thank you so much. So for clarifying purposes, I am not very familiar with this pilot program, but I am a pre-law student who has participated in street law related programming in my high school experiences. I've done moot court. So I guess my question more directly relates to not only connecting with educators who may already have a degree or experience in being an educator, but students who are experiencing what it means to be a student of the legal profession, and then connecting those gaps in demographics for participants of the program in general.
Okay. Yeah, Krista, thank you. That's excellent. I think that's an area that we do need to explore more. We know that there is definitely an important role for technology to play, and we haven't figured out all the ways yet in which we can connect more of the stakeholders whom you just described, in collaborating more and having more conversations, so there is a better flow of information from K-12 to higher education. And so we welcome any follow-up that you have. You are in a really fantastic position to be able to share additional insights with us. Anyone else in this audience, anyone else who may be watching this later on, we welcome your suggestions about how we can use technology better and how we can keep the communication moving forward. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And to our communications team, were there any additional follow-up questions or separate questions?
Yes. So last question is from Terry, and she asks, is there a network of guest speakers that can be identified by region?
Oh, that is a fantastic question. Unfortunately, no, we do not have that. However, there are some great places to look for potential guest speakers in your region. One is your local law school, your local bar association or your state bar association. Those are good places to get started. First, to let them know that you are at a law themed school or an organization that supports one, and that there is interest in talking with legal professionals who have an interest in sharing their time and their expertise with students. That's always a great starting place. On the street law website, included in those resources that we mentioned, we do talk about the best ways to use guest speakers and specialists in a particular area so that they are well-grounded, that they can be a productive part of the conversation with students. So we do offer some feedback there, and I encourage you to take a look at that once you've reached out to some of the potential speakers that I've mentioned.
All right, that was our final question in the Q&A.
Excellent, thank you. So there is a larger question that we wanted to pose to the audience, and that is, if a similar project became available in your region, how interested would you be in participating?
I'm launching the poll now, so feel free to go ahead and start logging your responses. All right, it looks like we have almost everybody. All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, closing the poll. And it should be sharing our results now.
Okay. Okay, and I think it is sharing on the screen. I'm not sure if everyone can see that, but it does seem that nearly everyone on the call is interested in participating in something comparable in their region, should it become available. So this is really important information for us to have. It will help us in planning next steps. Please remember that this was a pilot project that we were happy to undertake with Legal Prep in Chicago. We are so pleased that there is that level of interest, and it definitely gives us hope that this might benefit more stakeholders. So thank you for that. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all 3 of our guest speakers. We really appreciate your candid responses. I also want to extend my warmest thanks to the entire audience for sharing of your various experiences. You are joining us from lots of different parts of the country, lots of different programs of different sizes, different focuses. This was really a very powerful conversation, and we hope that things won't end here. We hope to follow up with you in the coming months as we learn more and figure out what the next steps are going to be. But for now, thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us this afternoon. I hope that you will keep in touch if there's anything else that we can do to put you in touch with some of those resources. Many thanks to our communications team for dropping some additional links there. Please check out our website if you're not familiar already, or if you haven't looked in a little while, please go ahead and look back. And if there's anything specifically that we can help you find, we're happy to do that. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you to Angela and to Sam and to Bob for sharing your expertise and time with us. It has been an absolute thrill and pleasure to work with all of you. And we hope that this is just the beginning. So everyone have a good afternoon and take care.